Google Hebrew 2, Chapter 34, Hitpael, Strong Verbs. Hitpael is the last group of Hebrew verbs that we will be learning this semester, and fortunately it is the easiest one because it has a unique hit prefix with a hey and then a hirek and then a tav. So every form will have that hit sound before it, so it should be probably the easiest to identify of the derived stems. Other diagnostic features are a patach under R1 and a dagesh forte in that R2 second consonant of the stem. The meaning of Hitpael can take a couple different directions here. First of all, it can be an intensive action with a reflexive voice, so as a counterpart to a call form such as kadash. He was holy, and kal in the Hitpael would be hit kadesh. He sanctified himself or made himself holy. So there you can see that hit form added to the beginning of the kal, and then we also have the patach under R1 and the dagesh forte in the second letter of the root. A second type of meaning that it can take is reciprocal, expressing reciprocity of action. So, for example, hitra'u with the Hitpael there from ra'a to look, to see. In the Hitpael, it would be they looked at each other. Hitkasheru from kashar to conspire would be here in the Hitpael form, they conspired with each other. Then there's what is called an iterative or repeated action sense of the Hitpael. If you look at hithalek, to walk around, the counterpart from halak, to walk, and hithapek, he turned this way and that, or turned around, from hapak, to turn. So some kind of repeated action expressed in the Hitpael counterparts of usually kal forms of verbs. And then the last use here, it can also be simple, the same as kal with a simple action active, such as hitpalel, he prayed. And so in that one, there's nothing intensive or reciprocal or iterative about that action. So it's just simple, the same way that a usual kal form would be. Then the paradigm for Hitpael perfect. So all of these have that hit prefix, which makes them easy to identify with the patach under R1 and the dagesh forte in R2. So in the top right, the third masculine singular, we have katal and kal. In the Hitpael, we have hitkatel. So going down the list there, we have hitkatel, hitkatla, hitkatalta, hitkatalt, hitkatalti. Then on the plural side, hitkatlu, hitkataltem, hitkatalten, and hitkatalnu. In the translation here with our morbid verb to kill, with hitkatel, their third masculine singular, he killed himself. So that reciprocal action somehow expressed there. Then in imperfect form, we still have that t sound with the prefix. The hey, however, disappears. It leaves us with the usual prefix consonant, so that's going to be the yod, tav, aleph, or nun, but the tav is still going to show up, so we're going to have that it sound that the Hitpael perfects also have, but just that hey is going to disappear. The patach under R1 remains, the dagesh forte in R2 also remains. So in the third masculine singular, on the top right, in kal we had yiktol, in Hitpael we have yitkatel. So we still have that yit sound there that sounds similar to the perfect hit form, but the hey has been lost here when the prefix is added. So you have yitkatel, titkatel, titkatel, titkatli, etkatel. And then on the plural side, we have yitkatlu, titkatelna, titkatlu, titkatelna, nitkatel. And the translation here is an imperfect, incomplete form, reflexive form. He will kill himself for the third masculine singular, for example. The imperative infinitive sides stay very much the same. So we have the same form Hitpael as we had with the perfect 3ms for the imperative here, and also the infinitive construct and the infinitive absolute. So for those forms, you'll have to use the context to determine does it have some kind of volitional sense, and should it be translated as an imperative, or does it have like an infinitive nominal sense to be translated as an infinitive construct or an infinitive absolute. The Hitpael participle goes from that second masculine singular Hitpael, which, the imperative goes from that Hitpael there and just adds the usual imperative endings that we saw with all the other verb forms. So in the second feminine singular, it adds that hirakior at the ending to get hitkatli, then hitkatlu, and hitkatelna. So starting off with that hitkatel form, we just add those usual imperative endings to make the rest of the forms there. And with some kind of reflexive sense, this would be translated as kill yourself. So for the katal in Hitpael imperative form. With the participle, as we had with piel, as we had with hifil, hofal, and pual, we have a mem prefix, and that mem prefix is added to this tav to give us a mit prefix, so that still maintains that characteristic sound that we have with the Hitpaels, with that prefix with a t there at the beginning, only this time with mit, so the mem is added there. We still have the patach under R1 and the dagesh forte in R2. So we have mitkatel, mitkatelet, mitkatlim, and mitkatlot. So those all take the same participle endings that we have with kal and all of the other participle forms with the second feminine singular tav, the 2mp im ending, and then the 2fp ot ending. And as a participle form, reflexive form in the present, something like killing myself, killing ourselves would be the translation there for that. A couple of irregular things that also happen with the Hitpael verbs. First of all, there's something called metathesis, and you can find a discussion of this on page 390 and 391. So metathesis means that when two side-by-side consonants of a particular kind are found next to each other, their order is switched in order to smooth out the pronunciation of the word. The consonants that are going to activate this condition are the tav that we have in the Hitpael prefixes, and if that is followed by a samik, a sin, shin, or a tzade, there's going to be some changes happening in the ordering. So with the verb shamar, for example, when that is placed in the Hitpael, it becomes hitshamer, which is what we would expect, but with the rule of metathesis, that actually becomes hishtamer. So you can see there how the shin and the tav have changed places. With satar, we would expect this to be hit sater in the Hitpael, but the sin and the tav here metathesize and switch the form into histater. And then with tzadak, the third example there, we would expect hit tzadek, and this one changes to hit tadek. And notice also that the tav there is lost and replaced by a tet. So this one undergoes a couple of strange changes there with tzadak. So the metathesis of the tzadi with the tav, and then the tav also switches to a tet to give us hitz tadek. And then the second unusual feature mentioned here is called assimilation. And we've already familiarized ourselves with this, such as when a nun assimilates into a following letter as a dagesh or something like that. So if the first radical, if the R1 letter is a zayin, a dalet, a tet, or a tav, the tav of the Hitpael prefix will assimilate to that letter as a dagesh forte. So in certain forms that are placed into the Hitpael, if the first letter of that verb is this zayin, dalet, tet, or tav. When the hit prefix is added to that tav of the hit prefix will become a dagesh in the first letter. So for example, with the verb davar, to speak, begins with that dalet, which is one of these letters marked out here as causing this feature to occur. When we have the hit prefix added to that, the tav assimilates into that dalet, as we see here in hiddaber. So the dalet there is doubled due to the assimilation of the tav. The second example, same thing happens there with tameh. We have a tet beginning that verb. So when the hit prefix is added to that, and the tav of the hit prefix assimilates to give us hit tameh, so doubling of that tet there. So occasionally these two rules can cause confusion when you come across a verb and you recognize it has a hey prefix, but then it doesn't have that tav right after it. So you might be confused and start looking for a hifil, which can also have a hey prefix. But if you keep looking a little further down the word and you notice the patah the patah vowel under R1, you notice a doubling of the R2, and then you also notice a tav that has been potentially metaphysized into the second letter position. Then you can piece together clues to say, okay, maybe this is a Hitpael, and then you can place the root letters of the verb next to each other and actually find it in the dictionary. And the same thing with the ones that have assimilated. If you have a hey prefix, if you look at this hidaber and hitame here at the bottom, the hey prefix can initially look like a hifil perhaps, but then the other features with the patah under the R1, the dagesh in the R2, those can clue you in to look for a hitpael and presume or take the steps to reconstruct the form that a tav has gone missing here. And you know the rule of assimilation, so that makes sense. So you're able to identify these as Hitpael forms. Then the vocabulary for chapter 34. We have mikdash, sanctuary, off, birds, insects, anything that flies, ez, goat or goat's hair, palal in Hitpael, to pray, to make intercession, kir is wall, shofar is trumpet or ram's horn.